Welcome to CosmoFactory, a podcast by Cosmoprof Worldwide Bologna, where we explore the entire cosmetics, personal care, and fragrance industry supply chain. I'm your host, Deanna Utrusky, and here at CosmoFactory, we look beyond the trends to discover the ideas, initiatives, and innovations that are truly advancing beauty. Let's get started. This episode is about creating space for true creativity and innovation in product development. It's about artificial intelligence and how we can sensibly use this computer science to support cosmetic science. It's about ingredient discovery, product benchmarking, formulation optimization, and much more. Today, on the CosmoFactory podcast, I'm joined by Yahya Syed, co-founder and CEO of Potion AI, and by Hejab Malik, co-founder and chief product officer at that same company. Welcome to you both.
Thanks so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm glad you're here. So before I start asking you questions, I would like to give a little bit more context to our conversation by saying that over the past 4 or 5 years, the supply side of the beauty industry has gotten a lot more digital. Ingredient makers and manufacturers have updated their websites. They're creating engaging content, not just the webinars and white papers, but also video and social media content. Many suppliers offer virtual facility tours. I see some hosting in the lab video consultations with their client partners and prospects. And of course, we also see many more tech service providers in the beauty industry that have developed ingredient discovery platforms, regulatory support software, cloud-based formulation tools, most of which are noticeably more sophisticated and user-friendly than what has existed in the past. So we know that one of the most promising digital technologies today is, of course, AI, and that's where our conversation can get started here. Potion AI is basically helping cosmetic formulators, as I understand it, establish a product benchmark. So tell us first, if you will, what you've learned from formulators about their conventional benchmarking processes.
Yeah, sure thing. So I think um, perhaps the most interesting learning is that, most product development in the beauty space is iterative in nature.
Mhm.
And so, any product brief will come with a benchmark product that's supposed to serve as a point of reference for the desired performance, the desired texture. That could be a single product, that could be multiple products. And the first step is to basically decompose that benchmark product and understand what is driving the performance, what is driving the texture, what ingredients might be inside specifically, at what concentrations, et cetera. And our goal with our deformulation tool is to essentially help automate what is the first step in that process of getting on the bench.
Yeah, yeah. And I think in one of our earlier conversations, because I have gotten to speak with you both previously in person and virtually as well, but Hajab, I think you mentioned you're hearing from formulators that you've seen people just pouring through PDFs and, trying to create some sort of documentation. How tedious is that benchmarking process in what you've learned from your clients?
Yeah, so what we've learned, after talking to hundreds of formulators and kind of what led to us developing this tool in the first place is that this process of benchmark evaluation is something that's already being done manually every day by formulators when they receive a product brief or, when they're just curious about something new that's just hit the market. And
Yes.
so what we've built essentially is you can think about it as just an automated way to do what they're already doing. So
Mhm.
essentially you receive that benchmark, you have an Inky list, you can put it into Potion, and what formulators were doing previously is taking each Inky in the benchmark and just using the tools that they had at their disposal, like Google, various discovery platforms, their own internal inventory lists, and
Sure.
trying to figure out, okay, well, what trade names might be inside, and what specialty blends might be inside, and what are the ingredients that are just the fluff of this benchmark, and what are the ingredients that are really driving the performance, texture, efficacy, etc. So with Potion now, what you can do is basically get those answers faster. So it'll analyze your Inky list and just present to you, here are the different raw materials that might be in here. here are their potential functions so that you can just quickly figure out what's driving that benchmark and then continue on with your workflow as per usual, right? Because obviously you're not trying to just replicate that benchmark. Most of the time you are trying to see how it's working so that you can then decide, well, I want to make XYZ claims, so I'm gonna, remove these ingredients, add these ingredients, and obviously like make the formula your own.
Right, right. That's helpful. You both mentioned automation there. Yaya, you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, in a more tactical sense, you can imagine to your point about going through a bunch of documents, you might have a benchmark that has 50 ingredients inside. And you might have raw materials on the market that may be in that product that have five, six, seven, 10 ingredients. And so that matching process of figuring out, one, what inkies correspond to which raw materials, which of those raw materials might then be inside the formula, that can become a very cumbersome and complex process very quickly. And technology can help identify potential matches much more quickly than you or I, with uh, you know, a spreadsheet or what have you could. And I think a lot of folks traditionally just rely on pattern recognition. So they're
Mhm.
used to seeing certain inkies within formulas and, know, okay, well, that might be this blend or that might be that blend. And, automation can essentially, or technology can essentially provide that skill to, just about anyone with an internet connection. And
No, it's funny to think about it, but it's almost like the task that you're describing helping formulators with is almost some of their administrative work, right? I don't want to say busy work because it's super critical to developing the end product formulation, but it is sort of that admin desk work. I'm curious. I have, of course, visited the Potion AI website, and there I see that you list some of the users, and they clearly include ingredient companies, manufacturers, and formulation consultancies, um, all by company name, of course. This is my my summary of what they do. But I'm wondering to hear from you what kind of feedback you're getting from formulators who are using Potion AI in their workflow for this sort of benchmark tool.
Yeah, so I think our core target demographic, the folks that we're really focused on pleasing more so than anyone else, are the formulators and product developers.
Mhm.
And so that ends up being, really the CMs and the brands. And I think that the first thing is just it saves so much time, particularly with blend identification.
Mhm.
There are more things you can do with the tool, but a lot of the users just love being able to quickly throw in an ingredient list and get a sense for, what might be inside. So that's probably gratitude is the first point of feedback we've received. We've also seen or heard from a bunch of CMs that they are sharing with various stakeholders actively that they are using Potion. So
Mhm.
whether that's with their boards to show, that their R&D team with the same footprint can service more customers, create more formulas, et cetera. With their customers, showcasing that they're using the latest cutting edge technology that they can help bring products to market faster. And so I think that's something that they've been actively sharing with us. We're collaborating with some of them to, put some numbers behind, what some of these like time savings or efficiency.
Yeah, what the efficiencies are. Yeah. No, I love that. And I think too, I appreciate hearing that the folks who are using your tools are being candid about it. And as you're suggesting it, it certainly helps in terms of demonstrating efficiency and process streamlining. Is that a way I could say it? But I think at this stage too, for many folks, AI is still a very new technology. And it's true with most new technologies, right? That we, for best practices purposes, like to disclose that we're using them. I think being very transparent about the tools you're using only helps build trust. So that's really nice to hear. I'm curious if you would just remind me when you launched the tool to the industry.
Yeah, so the free platform that you see today that you can, sign up for through our website was launched in cause this year. So it's just been a couple of months and it's been, growing very quickly. So hasn't been too long.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And so I'm curious, I know Hejab, as Chief Product Officer, one of the things you've told me that you're responsible for is deciding what features get built into the tool. And I'm curious if you've made any changes or adjustments based on feedback from partners, or if maybe there's some planned features you can tell us about.
Totally, yeah. And that's correct. I do spend most of my time just talking to users or talking to formulators. And anything that you see us build is usually coming from those users. So in terms of changes we've made to the tool, we have, when we first launched the tool, we immediately started getting a lot of feedback around how useful it was for identifying raw material blends, and just figuring out what trade names you could potentially use. So we have made some adjustments to make it even easier to just see those immediately. So now when put a benchmark through the tool, you'll just immediately, when you click on an Inky, see like what are the highest overlap blends right at the top. And then another request that we were getting pretty often was around putting in a benchmark and then being presented other similar products in the market that you could consider that, have similar Inky lists, similar formats, et cetera, which kind of goes a little bit into product development or like product research as well. So then people were asking for, okay, well, what if Potion could help me figure out what the benchmark should be in the first place? So we actually combined those last two things into our latest feature release, which is essentially like a search engine for finished products where you can just type in something like, top rated SLS free shampoos, receive a list of products from various retailers, and then, analyze those products as potential benchmarks and also see other products on the market that are very similar to those. So I'd say since we launched, like those are kind of the biggest adjustments and changes. And then I think aside from that, we've gotten a lot of feedback, of course, on many things that will take a little bit more time to work on. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I'll let you kind of point some of those out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one is, as part of the deformulator, we do provide concentration range estimates for each ingredient in the formula.
Okay.
We'd like to basically make those ranges more precise. Um, they will probably always remain ranges because to what Hijab was alluding to earlier, we're not trying to help someone like dupe a benchmark.
Mhm.
And it's more to serve for inspiration. But I think there's some work we can do on, tightening those ranges. Also suggesting ingredient alternatives, equivalents, substitutes in a more intelligent way.
Mhm.
Currently do this with our ingredient search functionality, but we would like to bring this to, and folks have been asking to see that in the context of the formula itself.
Yeah.
Uh, and then, perhaps not surprisingly, regulatory. Uh, a lot of folks have asked, us to incorporate, regulatory features into the tool. We think there are various technologies, in particular LLMs, that are very well equipped to handle this sort of thing.
Mhm.
And so I think it is something we're very interested in. But there are, as you alluded to initially, there are tools and offerings that exist in the market today that can do that sort of thing. So I think when we think about prioritization, it's probably not the first thing that would come to mind. There's also you know, the need for like partnership with like suppliers, right? A lot of the
Right.
information you need to power true regulatory, compliance requires disclosure of information from ingredient suppliers, which, can oftentimes only be seen once you've actively purchased the ingredient in itself. So there's probably, more things to solve there. But we are very excited to help wherever we can.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for that. And you've mentioned the ingredient search tool as well. There are actually a few tools that Potion has, not just the benchmarking one that we started the conversation with. Talk us through the three main uses of your technology.
Yeah, so oh, so yeah, like we already kind of talked about, there's the benchmarking tool. And then we have essentially two AI-powered search engines, one that operates on raw materials and one that operates on finished products.
Mhm.
So the functionality is quite similar in that, for raw material search, you essentially see like a, Google-esque input box, and you can describe what kind of raw material you're looking for in as much detail as you'd like, and then you'll get a result with the best matches on the market. And then the formula search, similarly, you just describe like what kind of finished product you're looking for. You can even say things like, make sure it includes or excludes certain inkies, make sure it, meets XYZ criteria, and then you'll see products on the market that match. So those two search engines and the benchmarking tool are like our three core offerings at the moment.
Yeah, excellent. And I believe you've started offering what can be described as insight and analytic reports for supplier partners. Can you tell me what's going on there?
Yeah, so as I was referring in the discussion on regulatory, we'd love to basically increase the amount of information we're able to provide for any given ingredient to increase the utility of the tool to our user base. And so essentially to incentivize the raw material suppliers to provide that to us, we are providing them or offering them to partner and basically the exchanges. We will collect whatever information they're willing to share with us. We will incorporate that into our tool. We will verify their ingredients. Their ingredients are more likely to show up for relevant search queries and the like as a result. And in exchange, we'll give them insights on, trending products that we're seeing on the platform, like what are people trying to deformulate at a high level basis, what ingredients are trending, what claims are trending, so on and
Mhm,
so forth.
mhm.
All of this is on a company and user agnostic basis. So they will not be able to tell that, XYZ formulator at, Acme company is about to make, such and such product, but
Sure.
they're getting a pulse for, what's going on in the market, what are people working on, so that they can, better adapt their, strategies in terms of marketing and product
Mhm,
development.
mhm. No, that makes very good sense. Thank you. So let's talk more specifically now, if we can, about the AI portion of Potion AI. Tell us how this technology works.
Yeah, so that is a good question. And I think I mean, the very quick answer is we use an ensemble of models, to do various things. And I think we're very oriented around thinking about the job that needs to be done and then determining based off of that what is like the best technological approach to essentially address that problem. So as an example, when you think of the deformulator, that uses basically graph neural networks to ascertain, what the concentration of each ingredient might be
Mhm,
within that formula. When it comes to digitization, which is something that we do both for some of our customers and for the purposes of the platform as a whole, LLMs are a great application, or I should say, like a great paradigm to use to basically do that very quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, and just help me. It's language learning model,
LLM is large language model,
large language model. Thank you.
of course. And so, they're like just depending on, what you may need to do. Like if you're trying to predict the stability profile of a product, that uses a different sort of model. So we kind of have built probably too many models at this point to do various things over the course of the, last several years. And we're pretty ambivalent on what we use when, as long as it solves the user's need. That is
Mhm.
definitely, guiding North Star.
Interesting. Thank you. Yeah, I think here maybe we should mention that Potion AI does have three co-founders. Alex Steck, I believe, is your company's chief technology officer. He's not on the podcast here today. Um, as I understand his job, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, he's in charge of topics like deep learning and data science, that side of the business. Is that accurate?
That's right. So Alex is actually a childhood friend of mine. I've known Alex for almost 18 years now, I think. And he has been nerding out about artificial intelligence for over 10 years now. So he has a PhD in applied math. His specific research focus was in deep learning. And this is, he basically enrolled in that program right after this like infamous ImageNet competition that took place in 2012, where, people say that that's almost like the rebirth of the AI era. And so he's kind of been in the throes of this for a while, and he's always been very eager to and inspired to apply AI in an industry-based context. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, he's the guy, that kind of builds a lot of the stuff, the plumbing, if you may, of our applications and how they work. And he's busy chipping away now, which is why the two of us are talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. It's nice to know who the people are behind projects like this, rather. I'd like to take a minute and think in broader terms, if we can, about what the technology might enable. And I have one idea I'm going to run by you, and you let me know what you think here. But one of the challenges that I see ingredient makers in particular facing is what I would describe as new ingredient adoption. So when something exists in the market, right, an ingredient is time tested or good enough, and it's already available in the ingredient marketplace. Brands and manufacturers can be reluctant, right, to invest the time and money that it takes to start working with novel ingredients or prospective alternatives. Um, so I'm kind of wondering if tools like Potion AI actually make space for further creativity or product differentiation. And we might actually see an increased demand from beauty makers for some of these more unique or new ingredient technologies, maybe even for novel ingredient delivery mechanisms, which people like to share with me. Um, and I'm thinking maybe even uncommon manufacturing technologies that emerge from time to time. So I guess the question for you here is what is possible if we get to spend more time and effort on the formulation optimization piece of this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think so. A bunch of thoughts come to mind. One is a platform like ours should theoretically democratize access to information about all of these ingredients. And assuming we have sufficient information and we can share that information with our users, you would imagine that some of these up and coming and fledgling startups or companies with new ingredients will have more of an opportunity to showcase their unique value proposition to the world, and get their product out there. So that is something that a lot of ingredient suppliers have voiced to us. It's something that we're, very aware of, and we want to be thinking about, because we're in some ways we're kind of playing, not playing, but servicing both sides of the industry, right? Both the
Yeah.
formulators and suppliers. And so it's really important to us, especially as folks that are so inspired to build with the industry the future of formulation. Like how can we make sure that like the upstarts have an appropriate voice in the market. So that's just one thing I wanted to mention. I do think what you're going to see naturally from tools like Potion is a concurrent increased, well, I guess faster speed to market,
Okay.
lower times. It'll be easier to bring a product to market
I
sooner.
think I missed part of that lower which?
Basically, just faster development
Yep.
times. So just being able to bring products to market much faster. And I also think because we're democratizing access to formulation and information, I think the bar to clear in order to stand out and differentiate yourself in the market will be raised.
Mhm.
So as a result, when we are able to take some of those administrative tasks that we were discussing earlier and compress the time you spend on those, you can then spend as a product developer or formulator that time discovering, that new active that can make all the difference in your marketing story or something, where perhaps the value proposition, resonates more with you or your organization. So I think people will, in fact, be able to spend this time creating what are hopefully better products for the market and then customers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to chime in with, a tidbit from what you might expect from Potion. Deanna, you had asked what else is on our roadmap, what might be coming next, and something we're currently working on is essentially virtual formulation, where you could input elements of a product brief into Potion, and we would suggest to you a series of starting point formulas with raw materials that you could use. And so, this example you gave of, well, how can you leverage raw materials that already exist, but perhaps, no one's figured out how exactly to incorporate them. I think that could be an interesting, experimental playground where, you could use Potion to generate various starter formulas with these like new novel ingredients, and then take those to the lab and, conduct the process of figuring out, what works and what doesn't. So hopefully that's something that can tie those things together in the near future.
No, that's really interesting. In one of our earlier conversations, you told me that UX, user experience, and UI, user interface, will be absolutely critical in the age of AI. I'm wondering if you can help me understand what you mean by that.
Yeah, definitely. So I love to use the example of ChatGPT here because I think that we really believe that powerful product is what drives adoption. And it's not necessarily, how complicated or powerful the AI models or the technology, behind the product is. Of course, that's important, but at the end of the day, the user needs to be able to interface with and use these tools in a way that's intuitive and they would want to do every day. So I think what's interesting about ChatGPT is the frameworks that they're using have actually existed in the tech space for quite some time. It's just that their winning innovation, how I see it, is the interface. So they productize those tools in a way that made it so that anybody of any age group, from anywhere can just log in and see this really simple, easy to use interface and immediately know what to do. And I think that's so powerful. And I think that'll become more and more important because I think the tools that gain adoption and that, people continue using will need to have this sort of user love.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. I mean, pe people are very practical, right? Like when you and I use our cell phones, we're not thinking about what sort of battery is inside or, what the lumens are of the screen. We just pick up our phone and text our friend or email our colleague and put it down, right? And I think this is very much the same thing. Obviously, we need to take into consideration that like the software is safe to use, like the data is being treated appropriately. But beyond that, like people have problems that need to be solved and they want to use tools to help solve them. Uh,
Yeah.
and, and that's kind of what determines success and failure, in most of life, I'd argue.
Yeah, yeah, great. So, before we wrap up here, you mentioned safety. I do want to hear a little bit about how you're safeguarding individual and enterprise users, as well as, the data that you clearly have access to, from, perhaps the search that folks are using, and, any other sort of notes on safeguarding here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really important for people to consider our incentives, right? Which is if we are trying to build a tool for formulators, if we do anything that can put that uh, trust at risk, our entire business will fall apart. So we are very, very focused on making sure we don't do anything we shouldn't, and that any data that we have or is being generated on our tool is being treated with the utmost respect and being, treated appropriately. So we are not collecting anything on an individual basis.
Mhm.
We are not recording that. The sort of information you will see us record is, for example, if a bunch of people are looking for actives to address a particular claim, you know, we are basically capturing those macro insights.
Mhm.
If you, in the deformulation tool, input a percentage into our table, we will observe whether or not that percentage is within the range we provided, outside of the range we provided, et cetera. Again, in the spirit of improving our models,
Mhm.
right? So,
Mhm.
uh, that's kind of where things stand right now. There is a chance, perhaps, that we will have dedicated enterprise environments with some of the larger companies at some point
Sure.
where, they just don't want their data even in the same, literal physical metal hardware that someone else's might be, and we completely respect that and want to be able to service those folks as well and provide them the benefits of our tools. Um, but as of right now, that is not that's not how the application is set up, at least the free version of it.
hmm Excellent. Excellent. I appreciate that. It's been really helpful to understand. Well, Hejab, Yahya, thank you both for such a fascinating conversation here today. I'm very glad you could join me on the Cosmo Factory podcast.
Thanks so much for having us. It was a blast.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening. If you find the Cosmo Factory podcast useful, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review and share your thoughts so even more cosmetic industry professionals can discover the Cosmo Factory. I'm Deanna Utrusky. Please join me again next Tuesday for a new episode of the Cosmo Factory podcast.